Welcome in, folks, to a warm and toasty Hit Play podcast. Hope you're listening to this while chugging on some hot cocoa or coffee or a nice warm glass of brandy, if that's your thing this time of year. Or if you're not cold,
brag about it.
Yeah, I hope you're enjoying your summer still. We are here. We are the Hit Players, as you all know, and we are here because we just watched a wonderful, I'll just say that right now, investigative journalism movie. She Said, directed by Maria Schrader, starring Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan, detailing the process on which the Harvey Weinstein allegations came to fruition, and not the ensuing fallout, because
it was the article that led to the Me Too movement.
Yeah, the famous article that everybody woke up to one morning and saw what happened. Your initial thoughts as we are sitting 40 minutes away having left the theater?
Initial thoughts? Yeah, I liked it. As a movie. Not to say that I liked Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, we are anti-Harvey Weinstein.
Yes. Always have been.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I went into this having overdosed on movies about investigative journalism. And so I was pleasantly surprised that this movie played into all the tropes that I have seen.
Yeah.
While also just uncovering elements of this investigation that I had not previously known.
Yeah.
Which watching movies like this, I always appreciate, is the depth to which they actually do. Although they're still movies and they're still meant for entertainment.
Quote unquote entertainment.
It's infotainment is what it is.
Yeah.
There are certain lines of dialogue that, you hear them for the first time and you're like, that's a little suspect that happened in the real world, in real life.
Yeah.
Like, what was one of the lines about how the, what was it? The ethics board wasn't allowed to disclose a company's history of sexual assault to people who are applying for jobs at said companies. And I'm like, that's actually probably information that people should always have had access to begin with. Why was that policy to begin with?
It's one of those terms and conditions that you read, like signing up for Twitter, and then you're like, oh, wait, they're actually selling my information to the Chinese.
Yeah.
It's one of those kinds of things.
But I thought it was a very well-made film. And it didn't feel long. It didn't even feel boring.
No, I was like, from the get-go, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. Which is something that I have been interested in watching, is how these movies... Because the general wisdom around writing a story is to avoid exposition as much as possible.
Yeah.
But movies about journalism are nothing but exposition all the way throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm... Out of the ones that I have watched recently, including She Said, none of them have been boring whatsoever.
Mm.
And I think that this movie is fairly captivating in how it engages you with these women's stories. Because in many ways, they actually did get the real women involved.
Yeah.
Who star in this movie. Ashley Judd. And you said that Gwyneth Paltrow plays herself over the phone.
Yeah. Good old bait and switch, but
she doesn't show up.
It's still pretty cool that they used her voice.
But nevertheless, what were your initial thoughts? Or what are your initial thoughts? It's only
I was
15 minutes.
very apprehensive going into it, just because I think I always think that you should give certain subjects time, especially in terms of something so heavily as the
Some of that impacted the film industry itself.
the Me Too movement, as well as there's a little bit of bias with a film company making a movie about a film producer.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get a full scope? Have we even really let this age to where people can understand it better? Not that there's a lot to understand. Sexual assault and rape are bad, but like, will it have an effect on us? Because we're still seeing people get ousted. It feels like, at least, it's slowed down since then, but every once in a while we'll get a story or two about some actor back in the 80s or 90s. So it's like, have we distanced ourselves enough to actually understand what happened in context and how serious this really was? But I actually think this movie did it fairly well. I think I didn't realize it was so long ago. It was 2016.
Which was not that long ago.
Which was not that long ago, but at the same time, it's like, that's already 6 years. Which is just crazy to me, because it felt like, 2 years ago you woke up on the news and it was like, holy shit, like, this is crazy, But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the acting. I think for stories like this, and you have to have good direction and good acting. And I think the two leads, even though there were times where I was like, that's not your best day at the office.
A lot of the extras, I felt that way.
Yeah.
About. A lot of the acting from some of the secondary characters felt a little bit pulling people off the streets.
I was definitely it's good.
Yeah.
It stays with you.
Yeah. There was one specific moment, speaking of acting, one of the characters has a baby, and there's a shot where the actress goes over to her baby in its crib, and there's a reaction shot of the baby. And I'm like, that kid could have done anything and it would have worked. He was staring into the camera at one point. They were just like, yeah, it's a baby. Can't give it direction. Just walk over to it and hold its hand. Irregardless, speaking to the time frame, another movie about an important event, All the President's Men, which is about the investigation of the Watergate scandal, which happened in 1972. The movie came out in 76. So there's only a 4-year difference between the event and when they made a movie about it, which is a fantastic movie. But the film that this reminded me the most about was the movie Spotlight.
Yeah.
More so in terms of how, not just because they're both about sexual assault and uncovering the cover-up of what happened, but structurally they're very similar in that they start relatively small and then slowly grow as it's realized that.
It's like there's two scenes in both of these movies, or there's a scene in both of these movies where there's a moment where the characters realize the actual scope of the story
larger.
that they have.
Yeah.
And those reactions from both of all the characters in both of these movies is like, it just feels genuine. Because imagine just being a regular person at work. You think like, oh, I'm just covering, this parish I don't forget if he was a parish or a cardinal or whatever, but it's like, oh, there's some rumors going around. Let's see what's happening. Oh, this is the entire church.
Yeah.
That has committed these wrongdoings for years. Like that.
Yeah. There in the movie Spotlight, somewhat spoilers for Spotlight, they're given that information that there might be 13 priests in Boston, and then they learn that there are 90 priests in Boston, and they're like, okay, well, how many of these 13 were the ones who committed sexual assault? And then they're told, well, it could be as high as 90 priests in Boston who did, and they're like, that's everyone. And then I had a point, and then I lost it.
About the web.
About the web. I think that was what I was going to talk about. Yeah, that's a good...
Very effective trick.
Oh, I was going to say, in terms of reactions, I mean, both Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan are actresses, and
Yeah.
I have absolutely no doubt that internally their reaction still was happening with Harvey Weinstein when it did happen. Absolutely, probably played an effect into how they portrayed these two reporters. It is a true story. This is not, they didn't Zero Dark 30 this one where they took a collection of people and made it one person.
Yeah.
These are the two real women who actually uncovered this story. Interestingly enough, All the President's Men, Spotlight, and she said the actual reporters, all three of those movies are based on Pulitzer Prize winning. They won the, what is it called? It's called like Public Service Award, which is like the big award for journalism. So very important work being uncovered by these two women. In terms of extra characters, everyone is based on a real person. One of my favorite tropes in investigative journalism movies is that the editor of the newspaper is almost always some like stone cold Chad who is just like no BS. He cuts through everything, or she cuts through everything, and they believe in their reporters, and everyone else is just, they know they're a liar.
Yeah.
That is my favorite character in all of these movies. And in this movie, Dean is the character's name. I don't know the actor's name. He was the coolest guy in the entire world.
Andre
Like
Brogger? He's in I think he's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Nice. He's very good.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
The way that this guy just talks about and to Harvey Weinstein, I'm just like, yeah, that guy is not afraid of losing his job whatsoever. It's weird. It almost feels like there's not that much to talk about because so much of the story of this movie is already public knowledge.
Yeah.
Almost everybody, unless you've been living under a rock or have absolutely no interest in Hollywood whatsoever, knows the story. They might not know how they uncovered this. That being said, it feels like unfair to criticize this movie. There is a good maybe hour of them just collecting leads, just getting sources.
Yeah.
And typically in other movies that I've seen of this nature, there's more than just collecting sources. There is there's that web behind it, and it feels like they spend a long time. Like after about the fifth time they're in a restaurant interviewing somebody, I'm like, how many restaurants? Who's paying for these luncheons and dinners? And
journalists don't get paid a lot.
Yeah. A lot of interviewing with people, but it's not boring because the actual information being talked about is not only, it's morbidly curious. It's morbidly interesting to not only hear what happened,
but just how he got away
but
with
just
it.
how he got
Really,
away with
that's
it.
really what it was.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many systems, and I guess, looking at it now, there's so many, like,
The system was
for
built to protect
someone.
him, basically.
But it's just like,
I think the only thing that I came away disappointed from, and maybe this is because I had seen Spotlight so recently, was how the lawyers didn't really play a big part in this, how the people who were there to protect Harvey Weinstein was just there in,
they weren't called out.
2 or so scenes.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is because the actual legal proceedings that followed did not go to court. They were all out-of-court settlements. But maybe I was only disappointed because in Spotlight, the actual the legal side of the protection played a much, much bigger role. And maybe that's just how it turned out in real life. But I kind of like that lawyer character. He actually felt like he was friends with Carey Mulligan. Like
Yeah.
that. Those two characters almost felt like they were friends with each other.
He was like almost trying to rat out Harvey.
Yeah.
Was the vibe I was getting from it.
Yeah.
Because he's like telling him stuff like, he's like telling her stuff like, oh, like your numbers are off or this and that. And I'm like, you're supposed to be representing this guy, and you're just like,
Yeah.
and he's like, he knows he has a problem, but he's getting help and he wants to help out. He's doing it for his wife and kids. You're like, I don't think a lawyer is supposed to say that.
That
You're
was
supposed
one
to
of
be
those things
protecting
about
him.
this movie. Looking back at this movie, I wish they had explored that a little bit more
Yeah.
because between the lawyer, the two lawyers, the financial officer, and then the dude about the payoffs, those four characters, all of whom were there to basically, they were part of the system protecting Harvey Weinstein. When they are approached, questioned about it, almost every single one of them is like, yeah, we know it was bad and we kind of knew the extent of it, and we really like you don't understand how thinly veiled this protection is. Like, people are going to go to jail about this. So we kind of want to help, but also it's our, like, we still have a job to do here. But also you're on the right track and people are going to go to jail.
That's the thing that
I wish they had explored that just a little bit more
so
out of those
crazy to
characters.
think too, because it's like he's not a politician. He's not like a, I can't even like a mobster
Yeah.
or anything like that. It's like he's a fucking movie producer.
Yeah.
And he's getting treated like he's, the G9 summit leader or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy the amount of power he had. That's what really was bothering me the whole movie, was like, this guy's a producer.
Yeah.
Like, a producer makes 2 bad movies, they're gone. And this dude's over here, doing things he shouldn't be doing, and he's still in power for some reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just because he made so many people famous, sadly.
And using his power as a producer to basically burn notice anybody else who spoke out against him. Like, there are so many reoccurring, what would be the word? Not just lines of dialogue, but like reoccurring almost idioms, like how he always used the exact same excuse. He always, everybody else would respond to victims in the exact same way. Why'd you leave Harvey Weinstein? Like, there are so many hints at it being such a larger systematic issue. I almost feel like the movie ended too soon.
Yeah.
But
What's crazy too is this isn't even like, this is an issue that's been dating back since the beginning of Hollywood. I mean, you think of like Judy Garland and how she was treated by MGM. Was it MGM? During all
Wizard
of
of
the
Oz.
movies. I mean, they basically killed her. And other actors and actresses of the time, the way studios would treat them, it's like, no wonder Harvey Weinstein could think he had this power. But then when this comes out, you're like, these guys have no power. All they do is make movies. Which we love movies and we want to work in the industry and this and that, but it's like it's nothing serious, I would say.
Yeah. You're not curing cancer.
Yeah.
That's what's
It's
so
just
interesting comparing that. Because, like, I remember in Spotlight, there was the big reveal, or there was the epiphany of, like, they've been doing this for decades, and we've always known this. And then in this movie, it's like, well, what about any of his recent?
Yeah.
Like, that was the big epiphany, was that not only have people known about it for decades, but
He's still doing it.
it's still... It's a little ridiculous.
Because even, in the case of the church scandal, it's like the church is a sense of, community. It's a sense of belonging to something that's greater than yourself. These people are supposedly
they find
literal,
meaning in it.
The church leaders are literal, connections to this higher being. So why would I try and interrupt,
Yeah, why would you intervene in that?
Why would I interrupt with that?
And then in this one, it's like, for the Harvey Weinstein, it's like, these people just wanted jobs.
Yeah.
They just wanted to help make movies, and that's just the job they wanted to do. All that to be said, that this movie, it is morbidly interesting. It is that sense of wanting to understand how this web of protection was broken down and how they actually got to these victims and heard their stories. But I think you had described Spotlight as being one of the best movies you never want to watch again.
Yeah.
Because you just don't want to remind yourself of what happened. And I this is certainly in that same category.
Yeah.
Where it's like very well made. It's very important what's being discussed,
Correct.
but I wouldn't imagine wanting to relive, even just as a viewer. Nothing to be said about the people who actually had to experience that.
It's not going on the old Blu-ray
Yeah.
disc or shelf.
It's tough.
And it's very effective too with showing the younger versions of the. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they're not real. They're not using the real
They're just-
people.
Yeah, they
but
actually
they
don't
do
show anything.
Flashbacks, and they don't do. Yeah, they don't. That's another thing too, is they don't
Mhm.
show anything.
They don't even show Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Actually,
They do a very good job of, blocking him with another
Mhm.
actor as he's walking into the New York Times. But those flashbacks, I think, hit me the most because it's like, because they're probably using real 20-year-old
Mhm.
actresses, and you're like,
like they
man.
actually look that young.
Yeah.
It's like if
It was what
TV
threw me
shows.
off because we were, you're so used to seeing 26-year-olds play
High
18-year-olds.
schoolers, yeah.
That you're like, holy crap, that's how really.
Oh, that is what a 20-year-old looks like.
That's
Actually,
what a 20-year-old actually looks like on screen, and it's like, God, you look like a 12-year-old.
yeah,
It's definitely unsettling.
yeah,
To
for
say the
sure,
least.
for sure.
This is a weird
Which-
movie to talk about.
Yeah, it is. Which is not to say that there's not a lot of
Right.
positivity in this movie too, because
I think it's just the subject matter is so
the
heavy,
subject matter is very
and it's yeah.
depressing, but the movie definitely has something to say, not just about female empowerment, which I feel like this movie has almost more to say about friendship, about female friendship more than anything. Is I think really what it comes down to, or at least that was a connecting theme throughout this movie. Is a lot of the characters not just becoming friends with each other, but having to turn to friends, or only having friends that they could
Yeah.
turn to, or only being able to confide in other women. That is definitely one of the positive messaging that you can get out of this movie. Other than the fact that Harvey Weinstein went to jail, and he is now in jail right
Yeah.
now. So that's probably
He's
the most
in
positive
suicide encouragement.
yeah. A la The Onion, he is in intensive suicide encouragement
Yeah.
at Rikers Island. One of The Onion's best headlines, in my opinion. That's a good one.
They never miss.
They never miss.
They will never miss.
And they're almost always right. Yeah.
I
it's
did
tough.
like that they showed the families, and in terms of like
the two reporters.
their daughters. Just
Mm.
thinking like, if I don't try and fix this, what are my daughters gonna, have to deal
Yeah.
with when they get older, and stuff like that. I thought that was a really effective, because I mean it's even in the Spotlight, which we keep referencing, but it's in the opposite effect where it's like my mom is a devout Catholic.
And
And
she goes
this
to church
might-
3 times a
This
week.
might actually kill her.
Yeah.
So it's like that struggle is
Mhm.
interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But this struggle of like, I need to do a good job for future
Mhm.
I mean, Zoe Kazan has a breakdown in her hotel bedroom because her daughter brings up the word rape, and she's like, 5-year-olds should not be talking like this, or however old the daughter is. And it's like, damn,
they
you
do.
get so desensitized to that you don't even put yourself in those shoes.
Yeah, seriously. So in terms of following the what I've seen as being the structure of a lot of these investigative journalism movies, this one is actually a little different because typically, from what I've seen in, say, All the President's Men, Spotlight, I would even throw Zodiac in there as well, on the David Fincher movie.
We like Zodiac.
There's almost always, from the beginning of the movie, one source who is either on deep background, confirming or denying information, or he is just has possession. They have possession of information that could be like a breakthrough for the reporters. And it's typically not until the very last moment. Being a Hollywood movie, we're minutes away from the deadline. We have to get the story out. Can you confirm or deny this? And they confirm it at the last minute. This movie is a little different because every single one of their sources, they need to go on the record.
Yeah.
And so it's the stressor on these reporters of, we have to get the story out, but we also need every one of our sources to go on record for this, except for Gwyneth Paltrow, except for her. We need everyone to go on the record about this. So to that degree, this is almost like, I saw this movie as almost having two complete halves, where the first half of this movie is meeting these women, learning their stories and what happened to them. And the second half is basically compiling those stories and
the conflict to get them to come out.
Yeah, getting them to actually stand together against Harvey Weinstein.
Which is really effective, though, because that ending, when it publishes, you're like, damn. Like when Zoe Kazan breaks down crying because one of the women, the first woman, decides to go out, you're like, I was like, that got to me a little bit. That got to me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I was like, damn. Like, imagine working on this for months and it just hinges on somebody saying yes.
Yeah.
And they finally say yes. It's like,
crazy.
Because it all falls apart. It all falls apart if none of them.
Or they have to just find a completely different angle when they've already spent so long.
Because now it's just anonymous sources and speculation and nothing concrete that they can come out with.
The only thing that I would personally like to know after having watched this movie, and probably would be good to know going into it, is the actual, actually tracing what we know about Harvey Weinstein's side of the story before going into this. Because even though he is a character in this movie and has dialogue scenes, the things that he says, I would be curious to, if I was going into this, if I had known what was true and what was not true, what he did say, I feel like that would have made those scenes a little more impactful. Only now coming out of the movie, if I look into that and I see what did happen, what like the recordings, for example, if that was real or not, or at least if that was what was said in the recording or not just whether they used the real one in the movie or not, if what was said was real or not, I feel like that would just make that more impactful if I had personally known whether that was real or not, or whether that was true. Not say that they would falsify something, just it's too ridiculous, too crazy to think that it actually is a real thing that he put people through. It's almost unbelievable if it wasn't for the fact that it was systemic.
You listen to the recordings and you're like, this dude sounds like a 13-year-old on like Omegle.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, this does not sound like a 50-year-old producer.
Yeah.
In charge of one of the biggest production companies, studios in Hollywood. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's a weird one.
It was a good weird one, though.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a good movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Award potential?
Oh, absolutely.
I could see screenplay for sure. I think it'll get nominated.
I don't know if this is. I don't think it's based off of a book.
It's based off their book.
It's based off of their book.
It's based off the book and the actual article.
On the actual article. Okay, cool.
Both of which are both written, obviously, by the two reporters.
Yeah. So best adapted screenplay.
Correct.
Almost certainly.
For sure.
I could see
acting potential
for Carey Mulligan.
Potential. She's on fire in this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll say that much.
I loved her character so much. I don't know how much of that is the actual personality of the real reporter or not.
I hope it's 100% the actual reporter, because that was just like, F you, get out of my way. She's like Jordan at the finals, game 6, pulling up on Utah Jazz. Just get out of my way, let me score.
So many characters have that attitude in this movie, and it is like, I don't know if people in journalism just like have to be that way, but
I think
maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I imagine so.
I imagine so.
Especially if you're doing
codifies that kind of like personality. That's one of those consistents across all these movies where I'm like, I love this approach. It probably feels horrible for these people in real life to have to constantly confront just the worst of humanity every day. Probably is part of why they build up that resistance to it. Yeah. But she is amazing. So I can see her getting, in terms of award buzz, I see her the most out of everyone.
Directing?
I don't know about directing. I was thinking possibly score.
Yeah, I really like the score.
Is what I was thinking.
Uneasy, violin string instruments. Almost kind of, you're going to hate me for this, but almost like a Hans Zimmer Dark Knight-ish kind of thing where you're like, hold on, am I about to see Heath Ledger like shoot someone in the face, or am I watching, investigative
journalism? I mean, that's what I think makes it stand out the most, is that it really makes those tense moments feel. That was one of my issues with Spotlight, where there were so many times where I noticed the score and I was like, this feels a little inappropriate at a time like this, talk about this subject matter right now. Yeah. Don't think this music really works here. But no, I this is probably one of the few times where I feel like it actually drew me. It's actually hard to say, because if you don't notice the score, then it did its job, really.
Yeah.
So that's probably the other thing that I can see this outside. I can imagine it getting nominated for cinematography, but I don't see it winning. But it's a very sleek movie for sure. But outside of that, I think script and score are the two that I see the most out of everything. Do you think it would get a director nomination?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of movies that came out this year.
Because at this point, so many films get nominated that it's almost like a formality. You know, like if you just come out and it's a decent movie, you're probably going to get nominated just to fill up the list. Which is not to say that it's a poorly directed movie or even a bad movie.
Right.
Just say that there's a lot of good movies coming out and they need to nominate something.
Yeah. What about Best Picture?
Yeah, that would be one of those categories where I would say they tend to fill it.
Because it's 10 nominees.
Yeah. Can
you name 10 other movies that would not or would get nominated over it? Other than Top Gun Maverick?
What else did we see this year? Did we see The Northman this year?
We saw The Northman this year.
Maybe The Northman?
Nope.
We saw Nope. Nope. We probably get.
I don't know if it'll get a big picture.
Again, they have to fill something. They've already nominated Black Panther, so they would probably nominate
Spider-Man: No Way Home.
No Way Home.
Black Panther 2 is for sure getting a Best Picture.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I could also possibly see it.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
That's getting Best Visual Effects. Is what that's getting. Well, Spotlight won Best Picture, didn't it?
Correct.
So I mean, there's already precedent for this kind of thing, which isn't to say that it's Oscar bait. I think this movie completely stands on its own, even outside of any recognition.
It actually, I was surprised on how much it's not Oscar bait.
Yeah,
because these movie companies want to say, "Oh, look at us! We're uncovering what happened in our system and this and that, and we're on top of this Me Too movement. We want to show that we were pioneers, or we're spreading the true story of what happened." And it doesn't really do that.
And I think a lot of that for me came from the fact that I heard about this movie through a tweet. Like, I saw no trailers, no marketing.
No, I didn't even know it existed until you were like, "Hey, by the way, Black Panther or She Said this week," and I was like, "Well, I'm not seeing a Marvel movie, so let's go see She Said." I don't even know what it's about yet.
Yeah, I mean, and how much of that is just on the fact that it's a fairly independent, independently produced movie, and how much of that is the rest of Hollywood not yet wanting to publicly acknowledge its wounds.
Yeah, because they were all in on it.
Yeah, there's so many indications throughout this
Well, they name dropped Disney.
Yeah,
and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
That's fair.
I didn't think they were gonna go there. I think I even leaned over to you and I was like, "Do you think we're gonna see some actresses actresses?
Some people come out.
Some resemblance to famous actresses."
Yeah.
They didn't go there.
They didn't go there.
Better or worse, but yeah.
But no,
it threw me good when they brought up Disney.
Yeah, that was one of those things where I was kind of like, did Disney
this is definitely an independent
have something
movie
to say about that? Yeah. That's Universal being like, can't buy us out.
Yeah, right. We are the Fast and Furious franchise. We have family.
Yeah, we have family.
We're good.
But no, this is to summarize, because there's honestly, I've said just about everything that I can about how I feel about this movie.
Yeah.
Very well made, but a little disheartening to watch.
Yeah.
But I would definitely recommend it. Not a popcorn movie. Definitely
No,
not.
I stopped eating my popcorn.
Yeah, I was like,
not even. It was like 20 minutes in. I was like, I'm not even hungry.
yeah. There are a few scenes where I had those moments where I took a bite and I was like, then they started talking about stuff and I was like, I don't feel like I can eat right now. It feels a little inappropriate to eat in the theater. But I would definitely recommend it for sure. Very good movie.
I would put it on the A tier.
Yeah, definitely. Very solid.
Which is also where
A
I put
plus.
Spotlight.
Yeah, for sure. Any final thoughts on it?
No. Other than no. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
If you can, I would recommend seeing this for sure.
Yeah, go watch this movie.
Yeah. Probably don't take your kids, but
Definitely don't take your kids. I think it's rated R, isn't it? I mean, I imagine so. They said
I imagine
the
it's
F-bomb
rating
like
R. Yeah.
6 times.
That's fair.
So, I mean, Carey Mulligan says it like 6 times just talking to one
In like
guy.
one scene, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That should be her Oscar clip.
Just that. Just you just see her yelling, but the whole thing is just censored. Yeah.
Or there's a scene. I will say this. There is a scene that really struck with me when Harvey Weinstein goes to the office and she's sitting there looking at him. And she's looking around, and like every couple seconds, she just stares at him. And then she looks around and she stares at him again. And you could just tell in that moment, you're like,
oh yeah.
She in her mind, she's thinking, I have you right.
That's
where I want
one
you,
of those
piece
few
shit."
things. So I've heard this criticism. Speaking of directing, and maybe this movie does deserve best directing, and I just don't know it yet. So frequently, I've heard criticisms about, particularly both television and movies, wasting screen time showing characters thinking, or how many audience members feel that people often think that it's intelligent or deep or cinematic to show a character thinking. I know that The Walking Dead is notorious for this.
There's a whole episode where Rick just walks into a field.
But yeah. So, and that's something that I agree with, that as profound as it might seem to watch a character formulate their thoughts, there has to actually be, the audience has to be the one formulating those thoughts in their head.
Yeah.
And then we project that onto the character. And that specific scene is like perfect. Like,
Down to the
as you are
minute
watching
detail.
Carey Mulligan, you think what she is thinking. I don't doubt that there wasn't a single person in the theater who wasn't thinking the exact same thing at that moment that we were.
Because she even has like she's not smiling, but
It's
she has
like
like a
that
smirk.
kind of smirk.
Yeah, she has a small smirk, and you can see it in her eyes because she stares at him. But it's not in the stare of like, I hate you.
I
It's
hate
like,
you. It's
I
more
have
like,
you.
yeah.
Like I
You've
got
walked
you.
into this.
I got you.
So I don't think that scene alone, would warrant a best director win, but I definitely think that I might have given this movie not enough credit and given the director not enough credit. Now that you mentioned that specific scene, because I remember watching that and being like, yeah, this is how you do it. This is actually how you show
Really, really good.
a character's thought process without saying anything. But that's also just a perfect setup for a scene anyway.
Yeah.
Tangent out of the way. Good movie.
I just wanted to shout out that scene.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out that scene.
That's the scene that stuck to me the most.
Yeah. Honestly, now that we talk about it, this was just like a surprisingly very good movie.
Yeah.
Like, not that I didn't expect it to be good, but like, it's one of those things where the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah,
really well
this was
polished.
very well done. Like, more so than I thought coming out of the theater. Because I came out of the movie theater being like, wow, that was really good. But now I'm like, yeah, this is probably one of the best movies I've seen almost all year.
I I think we just convinced us ourselves on camera that it's going to be a Best Picture nominee. That was live, by the way. We have no scripts.
Yeah, no,
That's funny.
I would definitely really recommend this movie for sure.
At least once.
At least once. If you can stomach it a second time,
more power to you.
By all means, support this movie. That's where I will leave it.
Exciting stuff. It's always a good day when you watch a good movie.
Yeah.
So makes me always more happy. Not that this movie makes you happy, but just seeing. I was thinking that in the theater. That I was like, damn, this is fucking art. This is what movies should be. Forget Marvel. This is.
Yeah.
Let's not go there. I'm like, this is what it should be about. This is what we should be doing and celebrating.
Yeah.
But anyways, we've already done that rant like 10 times, so we're not gonna do that here. Anyways, that's it for us this week.
Tune in next month.
Tune in next month. Have a happy, safe, and
have a happy
warm
Thanksgiving.
if you celebrate.
Have a safe Black Friday.
Have a safe Thursday and Friday off of school or work or wherever you do. We'll see you guys on the other side, whenever that may be.